One. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Project GEEKCast. I am one of your hosts, Josh Jones, and I'm with my dear friend Chris Glansman. Say hello to the people, Chris.
Oh,
So before we get into our main topic, we're going to talk about just like what we've been up to. So, Chris, like what have you been doing over the past couple of days?
I've been trying to play Blast, Black Ops 3 Easter eggs, Zombies Easter eggs, 'cause I'm a loser. And I've been doing lecture because summer classes are a thing.
Nerd, loser. Black Ops 3 is not the most recent game, right?
No, it came out our freshman year of high school
Why are you still playing this game?
because it's one of the best zombies games that's come out in recent history, in my opinion.
All right, but there's not new content or anything like that, right?
No, it's just I'm trying to do Easter eggs that I've never done before.
Got
Uh,
you.
so it's not.
Cool. I have been playing a lot of Destiny. Sometimes I play with you, Chris,
Hmm.
but a lot of time I'm just playing by myself. I've put in maybe not that much time, maybe like 12 to 15 hours over the past week. Is that how long we've been playing?
Something like that.
Actually, it might have to be longer than that because I've been like staying up until like 4 a.m. most days, like grinding out some bounties for Zavala or whatnot. It's probably very unhealthy for me, but I'm having a lot of
Definitely
fun.
very unhealthy.
I also just finished the HBO series Euphoria, which is really good. Highly recommend. And I just started today this other show called Hollywood on Netflix, which is also seems pretty good.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. But our main topic for today is about E3 and video game press conferences in general, and just how, with our times right now, it seems like they might not be continuing into the future. E3
Hmm.
2020 has been totally canceled for this year, and Gamescom, which happens in late August, has been pushed to a digital only event. So, Chris, could you give us some information about E3?
Yeah, so E3 started with a meager 50,000 attendance in 1995,
So
and since
small.
then has gone up a lot to about 70,000 at its peak and 10,000 at its low point. But that was
10,000. What
entirely
year?
2007. It was a venue issue,
Mm-hmm.
um, so they focused more on media and retailers, not
Got you.
general. And then when they opened in to the public in 2017 with 15,000 passes, the attendance got much larger. They planned to raise that to 25,000 public passes this year. So you can only imagine how big that it was going to be, even with a slight drop
Mhm.
of about 3,000 people, attendees between 2018 and 2019.
Yeah. With that being said, I hear that like being at E3 is actually kind of miserable.
Mm,
I don't know if you've heard anything about that.
I've not.
So what I've heard, so I've it's always been my dream to go to E3. Like those events are just so like the energy in the rooms seem to be electric, and like I would love to play like video games early, get to test them out in like the
Yeah,
early
we were gonna
stages.
go.
Yeah,
Remember,
we
we were
were
gonna
gonna
do a cross
go.
country trip after we
Yes,
graduated.
I forgot. I totally forgot. It was you and our friend Will, right?
Mm,
Oh, that would have been so much fun. But honestly, we would have probably been in lines like to play like if you wanted to play like a big game, so like let's say The Last of Us Part 2 was there. That's
mm,
easily a 2 hour line
at
at
least.
least for the game. And like maybe we
Yeah.
can go see some indie things, but honestly, E3 is like not for the public or it's not made for the public. It's really there for press and if you got the idea and that GameSpot badge and maybe you get like into like a closed room demo and you get some more time with the game. But
Hmm.
really, it's difficult for people like us to try to see it.
Yep. And even with that, I feel like it's expensive even for people to not only for people to go though to fly across country or to drive across country, but for a lot of these companies to run the booths or the panels or the press conferences in general.
Definitely, it's super expensive. You have some more stats on that too, right?
Yeah, so I found an interview with, I believe it is called Semi-Formal Studios.
Hmm.
I think they're a small indie studio. They got the smallest possible booth on the E3 floor, which is 600 square feet.
Okay,
And just that alone cost $30,000 to
that's a lot.
rent a week. It's like $1,000 a day for internet for a booth. They ended up spending about $100,000 on the entire show, including building their sets and everything.
Really?
They if they hadn't second guessed everything, if they hadn't worked to lower their prices,
Mm.
they predict that they could have spent upwards of $500,000 on that.
Wow, really? That's a lot. So when we talked about this initially, I wasn't as surprised about how expensive it was because I was mostly thinking from like a large scale, like if you're Microsoft or Sony or Nintendo, like that's probably just like a couple bucks out your back pocket. But for an indie studio, that is probably a lot of money.
Yeah, and from what I've seen, I've never been to one of these conferences, but there are a lot of indie games that try and, or games and companies that try and go. And some of these prices are just astronomical and almost impossible for smaller companies to do or to shoulder because it's just too much with the income that they're making from whatever game that they are publishing.
Yeah, E3 is like the best time in the world to like show off your games and get public because like everyone who's like very serious about gaming is like eyes on and is watching these events and like keeping up with what's coming out. Maybe they're only watching for, PlayStation news or Xbox news or whatever, but in everything that's coming in, they might see like a random indie trailer and be like, "Yo, that looks really cool." And indie games have been gaining in popularity, and this is the time to be showing off your indie games. And E3, it's typically been the event to show it off at.
Yeah, and then like we said, it's next to impossible for a lot of these studios to even get in. If they have a game that's growing in popularity or that would be very popular and would benefit greatly from an E3 information session or a booth or something, it's not viable.
Definitely. And even now we've been kind of seeing a push away from like traditional E3s. It was all kind of started by Nintendo back in 2013 when they first started the Nintendo Directs. And as opposed to having their traditional press conference there, they live streamed a video of a bunch of trailers, a bunch of new information. I think that was the year that Smash for Wii U and 3DS was announced. So I was really excited about that. That was hype. They announced Mega Man during that press conference or during that video too, and that has kind of been the push away from traditional E3 culture. And even PlayStation followed suit. Their last E3 press conference was back in 2018, and they jumped out of E3 last year, 2019. They didn't have a press conference. They didn't have a video to replace the press conference, and they actually like they didn't even show up on the stage floor, unlike Nintendo, who always has something on the stage floor. Even back in 2017, I think that was their or no 2016. That was when they had the Breath of the Wild station, and like every game that they had was like Breath of the Wild. Like didn't have
Mhm.
any other games there to play, and their whole like they had like a museum. It was like decked out with like this Zelda inspired architecture and whatnot. So sorry, I talked for a lot. Um, what do you think of companies pulling out of E3?
I think the nice thing about this is that companies don't have to spend all this money on setting up booths or the press conferences themselves and maintaining the presence at E3, so they can put that money elsewhere into production or hiring or all this other stuff.
Mhm.
But I think it is detrimental to some of the companies in some ways. I like the way that Nintendo's been doing it with the Direct, but they still have the demo presence, like what they did with they spent the money instead on building the big stadium for the Pokemon Sword and Shield demos.
Yeah,
Um, so I think it is beneficial to have something like the demos there because it gives people exposure to a game. They're like, oh, I don't know what I want to do here. The line for this game is really long. Let's slide into this shorter line, see what this is about.
hmm,
And even if they don't have that, people won't be exposed to the games. With Nintendo, that obviously isn't as much of a problem because people are very aware of Nintendo. But maybe for
yeah,
like smaller companies, that's good. And it allows people exposure to games they wouldn't normally see, and it also allows people going something like the Nintendo to Direct. It's cheaper for the company, I guess. If that makes sense.
definitely. I really like kind of the controlled way that we've had like these press conferences are, or not the press conferences, but these like live stream videos are, especially Nintendo Directs. They have been on the wide spectrum of quality. They've been like super amazing and just like chock full of information, just like game after game after game, like just like hype all the way through. Sometimes I think the year that Super Mario Odyssey. Oh, so that would be 2017. 2017's direct was kind of weak. And we had years where everyone was talking as puppets. I don't know. They've been all over the place, but all in all, they are enjoyable, and it stops from some of those awkward, cringeworthy um, E3 moments that have happened in the past. Like the Ridge Racer moment and the doodle doodle guy. I don't know if you saw that in the past.
Have not. But it also prevents amazing moments like the "No, you're breathtaking" with Keanu Reeves at the Microsoft event. Talking about Cyberpunk.
Yes. Uh, it yeah, but and I think the hardest part for me is it might mean that we no longer have, you know, E3. We no longer have like that week where there's just game announcement after announcement after game announcement, like all these crazy moments. Like maybe these are going to be spread out throughout the year now. I mean, like I don't know. For me, E3 has always felt like gamers' Christmas.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that it's just so much concentrated information. It's something that we can look forward to get information about games that we're looking forward to, games that we've never heard of that are just kind of popping up on our radar, all that kind of stuff. And I think it's nice to have kind of a concentrated time when this happens, rather than, oh, that's a random day that everything is just we're getting information. It's just, hey, this is going to be a week or a couple of days. You're going to get a bunch of information here. You have plenty of time to mull it over after. See you when the game's release, or see you next year, or intermittent release because Nintendo does a couple of directs a year, and
Yeah.
State of Play is a couple times a year. So it's just it's nice to have that specific range where you're going to get so much amazing things.
Definitely, and just like the whole like build up to like there's so much hype around even coming to those dates. A lot of times, E3 was during our finals week, and so I would spend a lot of time trying to decide like, do I study for this? Do I watch the press conference instead? Do I do them both at the same time? Should I stay up until 12 a.m. to finish PlayStation's direct or PlayStation's press conference? I don't know. It was pretty nuts, and if they do go away, I will most certainly miss them, and most certainly will be a sad time.
Hmm.
But I think that brings us into the future and what we think press conferences will be like, in later years, even next year. Like, do you think that E3 is going to be back?
Um, I'm not sure. I hope that E3 comes back. I hope that at the very least it comes back in a more um, less press conference capacity, more demos, I
Hmm.
guess. I feel like a lot of companies are going to see this year that it's cheaper for them to run stuff like the Direct or State of Play for PlayStation, and they're going to want to do that again next year. But like I said, I feel like it's good for them to have the demos out, and I feel like wi- E3 is going to be able to is going to have to drop their prices, and not just E3, all other conferences are going to have to drop their prices to attend and for booths and stuff.
Yeah,
And that's going to allow more indie studios to get in, and it's going to be good for indie studios. So I feel like it could be good for everyone involved if
definitely,
if everything goes that way, which probably won't. But I would love if it did. That would be really great.
definitely. I'm also not very sure if E3 is going to get or other press conferences like this are going to be canceled. Honestly, part of me doesn't think that's going to happen. I feel like it's such a staple of video game culture that I feel like they just have to stick around. But if they but if there's any like changes to the status quo, I would like a more public focused event because, like I was saying earlier, E3, like E3 specifically, isn't really meant for the public to come. It's a press conference. It's mostly for video game or journalists to come there and like take notes on the games that are coming out, report on them, and whatnot. And I would love it. I would love to see them turn more into like a PAX event because PAX is for you know uh, fans to come and like try out games. And even like PlayStation like back in 2014 they started their PlayStation experience, mostly called PSX, where they really focused on having fans come. Of course they had press there too, but they really had a huge focus on like fans coming there. And like they like one year they had them like collect stamps or stickers or something. I don't know. It's just, and they had big releases or big announcements too. I do think that a more fan oriented event would be good.
Yeah, and I feel like if they want to do something for the press, they do something like or content creators and stuff like that. I know that companies like Treyarch have done in the past where they fly out a bunch of creators and then they have them play like the new Call of Duty DLC, Zombies DLC in studio, and they experience it there and they can record it, but then they can't release it for a certain time or talk about it for a certain time. So it allow or
Mm-hmm.
Battlefield 1 where they fly people out and you play it in studio.
Hmm.
Um, and I feel like that's probably cheaper and more practical. That won't happen this year because of the whole uh, quarantine thing.
Yeah.
Uh, but I feel like that's another thing that could happen more because
Hmm.
I don't feel like that happens much, except for big blockbuster releases or things that are big content creator turns, like zombies, like I mentioned. But I feel like that's another way to kind of get the news out there in a cheaper way, and also more than just during the week of E3 or a couple days of E3. So I figure.
Definitely. I also think there are two more avenues that could potentially happen that could replace E3 like events. Um, One of them, which is coming up very, very soon, is the IGN Summer of Gaming event, which is specifically made to replace E3. And they have a whole bunch of different companies coming out. When I have them in my notes, they have people like Blizzard, CD Projekt Red, EA, Square Enix, Ubisoft, and even Xbox, who's coming out with their Xbox Series X later this year. And so, do you think that you'd watch an event like this, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I before you brought it up, I honestly never heard of it. I don't follow much of this stuff too heavily. I get most of my information from you. Um, but I feel like this is something that would be good that I would like to watch. I
Yeah.
don't, unfortunately, I don't follow most of the projects. I don't know if I'll get Cyberpunk. It depends. Uh, I would love to, but and then like
Cyberpunk looks
Blizzard,
intense.
it does. Blizzard Overwatch 2 announcement? More, maybe, hopefully.
Maybe
Um, Ubisoft, I don't play much. I don't. I guess we're gonna get Assassin's Creed information.
Valhalla
EA,
is
I
coming
don't
out.
play FIFA, so what about EA? I guess EA does Battlefront and technically does Battlefield as well. So never mind. Enix is the only one that'd be really notable, I think, for me. But I mean, I don't know. I would watch it. I rambled a lot there. That's fine.
No, you're fine. I do think that there is. It's kind of odd now because that the big three aren't going to be like showing up to the, or I guess Xbox is there. We don't really know what Nintendo's going to be doing. Nintendo hasn't signed up for the event. I doubt they would because they had the directs that they can do on their own, and I also doubt that PlayStation is going to sign up. But it definitely feels a bit emptier, even though we have these like amazing studios who are set to show off content. It feels empty now that the big three aren't there.
Yeah, I agree. It's not limited in scope, but the big names that everybody thinks of, he's like, oh, what are the big gaming companies? It's Nintendo, PlayStation, or Sony, and Microsoft or Xbox, and only one of the three is present. Not to discount the other companies because they're great companies. They've done some
Definitely.
great things, but it's just kind of, I agree.
Yeah, exactly. And the other avenue that I think could sort of replace this E3 like event are the Game Awards, hosted by Jeff Keighley. I don't know if you've watched any of them in the past years. I have watched maybe one live. I mostly just wait until I get the updates and the rundown of what happened, and then I'll go through YouTube and I'll scroll through. But maybe if event like E3 is gone, maybe they'll like pump out more content.
Yeah, I feel like they might. And as a method of releasing information, I feel like the Game Awards is good as well. Because they do not only like the Game of the Year stuff, but they last year was it? No, 2018, I think they did the Joker reveal trailer because it was the night that Smash Ultimate released.
Yes, 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 yes,
They
yes.
did so I feel like they could do stuff like that too. They could be another method of companies kind of getting information out there, doing new teasers, new trailers, releasing new
That
information.
definitely, and that's what they've been. I mean, that's been like the most hyped element for me recently. Just that the fact that they could release any sort of new information. I think they released that there was going to be a motorcycle in Breath of the Wild at that, and I think they also had, I might be wrong, but I think they had a Death Stranding trailer that even showed off at one of the Game Awards. And so
Hmm.
Game Awards could totally be this huge moment where they're just showing off a bunch of new video game news. And if an event like E3 isn't happening anymore, where like everyone's coming together to show off their content,
Hmm.
this would be a good replacement. It's
Yep.
been all about video game love.
True. I agree.
All right, so with that said, thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Project Geekcast, and thank you, Chris, for joining me in this conversation about video game press conferences in E3.
Yeah, it's always fun.
All right, and make sure that if you want to keep up with with all of our Project Geek content, not just podcasts. We're hoping to put out some gameplay somewhat
Hmm.
soon. No promises about when that's coming
Hopefully.
out. Hopefully. But be sure to subscribe, even hit that bell button, give us a like if you want, send us a comment. We can talk about, what you want to talk about next in
Yep.
the next episode, or just any content you want to see in general. And Chris
Tweet
and
us
I will
ideas too, if you
definitely
want.
at Project Geek 2, I think is what our Twitter is.
Yeah.
It'll
Yes.
definitely be in the description too.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And this is Project Geekcast signing off.